These are acrylics. Beginner artists often think that these are easier to use than oil paints. They aren't, but I want to see if I can get acrylic paints to look like oils. There are a couple of obvious problems. Acrylics dry really fast, and you just can't beat the vibrancy and the luminosity that you can get with oils. But I do have a couple of potential solutions. The first is this stuff. An acrylic retarder gel medium. And this stuff is hopefully going to slow down my drying time a bit, so that I can blend, but also slow down the paints drying on my palette. Because when I've seen people use oil paints, they do like to pre-mix their colours. You can't normally do that with acrylics because... but you can with this. These are the paints that I'm going to be using for this painting. Can you guess what I'm going to be painting based on the colours? Well, if not, don't worry, because this next bit is going to give it away. The best paintings start with a solid foundation, a good drawing that sets you up for success, and that's exactly what I'm doing here, using a graphite pencil to start to sketch out and map out exactly what's going to be on this canvas. Before I can get stuck into the nitty-gritty of this painting, I need to get rid of the white of the canvas. Covering my canvas with paint like this basically stops that white showing through in the final layer, so I don't end up with loads of like specks of white in the finished painting. I sprayed my graphite drawing with a fixative spray before I added the paint, which is why it's not smudging. The reference photo that I used is slightly different to the actual painting that I'm trying to create. I've changed the background, so I like doing this blocking stage to just really simplify what colours are going where. While I wait for this wash layer to dry, I'm going to start mixing up some of my colours that I'm actually going to use for this painting. And I'm going to block in the background first. The most important part of mixing colours isn't actually colour itself. It's how dark or how light that colour is. And I've created a little chart here that puts my darknesses and my lightnesses, my values of colour, in order, so that I can visually see which colour is lighter than the next. And it just simplifies that painting process for me and makes everything a little bit easier, especially when it comes to putting the right values in the right places. I'm using a number 2 flat brush for the blocking stage, and I'm trying to keep everything quite painterly. I'm not just thinking about what colour goes where, I'm also thinking about the direction of the brushstroke, how much paint is on there, and what texture I want that paint to be. I didn't want to just paint a portrait, so I chose this reference because I thought this tiger had a lot of movement in it. It felt like it was walking forwards, it was on the hunt for something, and I wanted to capture that, not just in the tiger, but I also wanted to capture that movement in the background as well. So we've got lots of horizontal blades of grass running towards the direction of the tiger, and I've done the same with my brushstrokes, keeping that momentum and that movement going forwards. It's the end of day 1 and I've just about finished the background on the tiger, or at least I've finished the blocking of the background. There's still quite a bit of work that needs to be done on there, but for now I'm going to put my paints away and I'm going to work on the tiger tomorrow. Just the same as the background, I'm starting by pre-mixing my colours. based on their value, how dark and light they are, starting with the stripes. Once the stripes are blocked in, I move into the oranges and the blues and the browns found within the tiger. You can see on the left I've got a little colour chart that I created using Photoshop and just took some of the colours from the reference image so that I knew what I needed to mix. Then, starting with my darkest values, I can begin to block in the tiger, simply using that number 2 flat brush and looking at the darkest areas and then slowly building up to my lighter values, making this part of the painting process pretty straightforward. I can just work from left to right, blocking in each section at a time, getting it to a level that is pretty good. The values are all in the right place, but it's still nowhere near ready to be a finished painting. It's the end of day 2 on this painting, and honestly this morning when I sat down to start painting and blocking it in, I thought, you know what, I'm going to be able to get this done in one sitting. I thought I'd block it in and then it'd be perfect and I'd only have to do a few finishing touches to make it absolutely brilliant. How wrong was I? I've still got so much left to do. There's at least another 2 layers left on this painting, probably another 2 days of work. So I've got that to look forward to, but so far I think it's going really well and I just need to get stuck in and get this finished over the next few days. It's day 3 on the painting and today I'm just focusing on blending. I don't want to get too ahead of myself and start going in with the details just yet. Today I'm going to just try and remind myself to slow down and focus on blending and creating soft transitions between the fur. I actually have 3 secret weapons that I'm going to be using to try and make these acrylics look like oil paints. The first was obviously this acrylic gel medium. The second is this gloss glazing medium, which I'll be using for my next layer. And the third we'll get into after I've used this. I'm using the gloss glazing medium to add some brightness and some saturation to some areas of the painting. I'm also using it to soften some of the paint as well, so it doesn't look as harsh and solid. I'm not thinking about details at all at this stage, just blending and softness. The third medium that I'm going to be using is my absolute favourite medium to use with acrylics, and there's going to be people out there that say you shouldn't use it, but don't listen to them. I have used this medium in all of my paintings and it works absolutely perfectly, and that medium is simply water. I like to use the water because I understand it. I know how to use it to be able to create the transparencies and the opacities that I need for my painting process. And I can create this flowing, glowing looking fur and these amazing sharp details by just using that water. If I want to get more transparent, or I want to fade a little bit out, I can just add more of the water to my paintbrush when I'm mixing it with my paint, and I can create this amazing oil paint-like effect with the painting. Or at least, I think I can. In my hands is the finished painting, but before I show you the final reveal, I just want to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that I learned while I was creating this painting. And the first thing is that acrylics cannot be used like oils. You can create paintings that have a similar effect to oils when they're finished, but the actual process of painting is completely different. And you might think that the reason for that is because of the drying time of acrylics. And honestly, that isn't the biggest issue with them, because you can actually buy acrylics that have longer drying times. Golden open acrylics are one example of those. But what I find the biggest difference between oil paints and acrylic paints is the opacity. Oil paints are just so much more opaque than acrylics. So when you start putting down the paint, it just feels more solid and more substantial. Whereas with acrylics, to get that same substantial volume of paint, you need to put down loads and loads and loads of layers. Which is fine, because I love to work in layers. Another quick thing that I want to mention is that obviously acrylics do not blend as well as oils, and you are never going to get that blendability. For example, when I was painting the background, I left it quite painterly, with quite thick, bold strokes. With oil paints, you could, if you wanted to, get a mop brush and just blend all that back. Once you've put all your layers down, you can blend it all together and soften it and create almost a photographic bokeh look. And yeah, that's great. You cannot do that with acrylics. But I also don't really like doing that anymore with my paintings as much, because I don't want them to be photographic. I want them to look painterly. I want them to have those thick, bold brushstrokes. So even though that you can tell this background isn't soft, it's still painted the way that I would paint it in oils. I know I've got my own thoughts on whether acrylics can be used to look like oils, but what do you think? Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you'd like to see a little bit more about how I approach oil paintings, then check out this video here. As always, again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.